When a waitress served Baron Trump at a quiet cafe, she expected nothing more than a routine shift. But what he left behind, a note and a tip, brought her to tears and sparked a conversation across the nation. The smell of espresso mixed with faint notes of fresh pastries lingered in the air. The afternoon lull had stretched longer than usual, and the hum of conversation in the cafe had finally tapered to a murmur. For Dinah, the shift felt like a marathon. Every tick of the clock seemed to slow, and every clink of cutlery was just another reminder that she'd been on her feet for hours. She wiped the last table by the window and checked her phone. Just one more hour. Rent was due in 2 days and her phone bill sat unpaid. Tips that day had been pitiful, mostly small change tossed half-heartedly onto the table by busy patrons who never looked up from their phones. Dana exhaled, pulled her hair into a tighter ponytail and grabbed the order pad. Her manager, an older woman with tired eyes, gave her a glance as if to say, "Hang in there," but Dana was already on autopilot. Then the bell above the door rang. The sound startled her back into focus. A young man stepped in, tall, lean, dressed in a plain shirt and slacks that made him look effortlessly put together. 2 men followed close behind, blending almost too well into the backdrop, their sharp eyes taking in every corner of the room. The cafe wasn't exactly a hotspot for high-profile guests. It wasn't the kind of place where you'd expect celebrities, let alone someone who came with what looked like security. For a moment, Dana froze, her pen hanging over the pad. But professionalism kicked in, and she walked toward the table in the far corner where the young man had settled. "Good afternoon," Dana said, trying to muster her best smile. "Can I get you something to start?" The young man looked up, and for a moment Dana nearly forgot what she was supposed to say. His face was striking, but there was something familiar about him. His features, the slight calmness in his expression. Then it clicked. Barron Trump. Dana had seen his face plastered across the news over the years, son of the former president. She felt her heartbeat quicken, but she did what she was trained to do: stay calm. This was a customer, no more, no less. "I'll just have a cappuccino and maybe one of those croissants," Barron said softly, his voice polite but reserved. "Absolutely. Anything else?" He shook his head. "That'll be perfect, thank you." His words were simple, but his tone carried something Dana couldn't put her finger on. Kindness, maybe, or just sincerity. She scribbled the order, turned back toward the counter, and tried to shake off the flutter in her chest. She wasn't sure if it was nerves or exhaustion, but something about this moment stuck with her. As Dana prepared the coffee, she couldn't help but glance back toward the corner table. Little did she know this small interaction was about to turn her entire day, and maybe her week, on its head. The steam from the cappuccino machine hissed as Dana frothed the milk. She kept her movements deliberate, steady, anything to distract her from the odd nervous energy twisting in her stomach. "Why am I acting like this?" she thought. "Barron Trump of all people." Her eyes darted back to the table. He sat quietly, his posture straight but not stiff. He wasn't scrolling on a phone or typing away on a laptop like most patrons. He simply stared out the window at the street beyond, lost in his thoughts. Occasionally he sipped water from the glass she had dropped off earlier. By the time the cappuccino and croissant were ready, Dana had settled herself. She balanced the tray carefully and approached his table. "Here you go," she said, gently placing the cup and pastry down in front of him. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Thank you. You're welcome." "Let me know if you need anything else," she replied, keeping her tone neutral but polite. As Dana turned to walk back to the counter, something stopped her. Maybe it was the feeling of his eyes still on her, curious but not invasive, or maybe it was just her own tiredness making her self-conscious. Either way, her heart fluttered again. Minutes passed, and Dana busied herself with cleaning empty tables and refilling sugar containers. The cafe had grown quiet again, save for the faint hum of background music coming from the speakers. She felt the weight of the room in a way she hadn't before, like something invisible was pressing against her, urging her to pay attention. Out of the corner of her eye, Dana noticed Barron pull a pen from his pocket. and lean over the receipt as his meal came to an end. He scribbled something quickly, almost as if he didn't want anyone to notice, folded the paper neatly and tucked it beneath the empty coffee cup. Then he stood, gathering his phone and coat. Dana watched him for a split second before she forced herself to focus. "Thank you for coming," she called out softly as he passed by. Barron turned back just slightly and smiled. "Have a good day." Those words lingered longer than they should have. Dana stood there, frozen in the middle of the cafe, her eyes following him as he exited with his security close behind. The bell above the door chimed one last time, and then the room was quiet again. She let out a slow breath, picked up her tray, and made her way over to clear the table. The cappuccino cup sat empty, a small residue of foam clinging to its rim. Beside it, the croissant plate held nothing but crumbs. And there it was, the receipt. Dana picked it up carefully, the folded paper feeling heavier than it should have been. Her first thought was of the tip. Maybe it would be generous, but that wasn't uncommon with wealthy customers. They often threw money around to make up for their lack of interaction. But as she unfolded the receipt, the air in her chest vanished. At the bottom, beneath the total, was a number. A tip so large it made her stomach drop. 4 crisp digits. And above it, a handwritten note. "Your kindness and hard work don't go unnoticed. My family has been where you are. Stay strong. Brighter days are coming." Dana's hands began to tremble. She read the words again, this time slower, letting every sentence sink in. Her eyes darted to the door where Barron had disappeared, and her vision blurred as hot tears pooled in her eyes. Her knees felt weak. She stumbled back into the empty chair across from where he'd sat and just stared. The note, the tip. It wasn't about the money, it was the words, the weight of empathy, written in ink by someone she never imagined would notice her existence. For the first time in weeks, months even, Dana felt seen. As the tears streamed down her face, she thought about what those words meant, but this moment wasn't over, not yet. Someone else would see the note, and Dana's story was about to ripple far beyond the walls of the cafe. The sound of the cafe door opening jolted Dana from her trance. She wiped her tears quickly with the back of her hand, tucking the note into her apron pocket as her manager approached. "You okay?" her manager asked, narrowing her eyes in concern. "What happened?" Dana hesitated for a second, trying to find the right words. I'm fine," she said, though her voice cracked slightly. Just a really generous tip." Her manager raised an eyebrow, not convinced. "Generous enough to make you cry?" Dana nodded, managing a shaky laugh as she reached for the folded receipt and held it out. The moment her manager saw the number, she let out a low whistle. "No way. Who left this?" "Corner table," Dana replied, her voice softer now. "That was Barron Trump." Her manager blinked. "The Barron Trump? Are you serious?" "Yeah," Dana said, pulling the note from her pocket. "But it's not just the money." She handed the note over carefully, as though it might crumble in her hands. Her manager read it, and for the first time in months, Dana saw a genuine softness in her boss's eyes. "Wow," she whispered, handing the note back. That's something else." "It really is," Dana agreed, folding the note again like it was some kind of treasure. "I don't even know why he wrote it. I didn't do anything special." Her manager looked at her for a long moment. "Sometimes people just know, Dana. They can see what you're going through, even if you think you're hiding it. You're here every day working your tail off, always kind to customers, even the ones who don't deserve it. Maybe he saw that." Dana swallowed hard. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words. For months, she'd been treading water, working double shifts to pay rent, skipping meals to make sure she could cover her mum's prescriptions. She'd been kind because it was the only part of herself she hadn't let the world take away. And somehow he'd seen that. As the minutes passed, a strange buzz filled the cafe. A couple of co-workers whispered by the pastry display, pointing toward the table where Barron had sat. News travelled quickly, and it wasn't long before one of the baristas came up to her. "You served him, didn't you?" the girl asked, her voice somewhere between excitement and disbelief. "What did he say? Was he nice?" Dana smiled faintly. "Yeah, he was really nice." "Man, I'd freak out," the barista laughed. "That's so crazy." Dana didn't say anything more. She didn't want to explain the note or the tip. Somehow, sharing it felt like taking something sacred and putting it on display. For now, it was hers. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Every interaction felt lighter somehow, every table she cleared a little easier. When she finally pulled off her apron at the end of the day, the folded note remained safe in her pocket. As Dana made her way to the subway station, she found herself holding the receipt again, staring at the words, "My family has been where you are. Stay strong. Brighter days are coming." She whispered the sentence under her breath, as though saying it aloud would make it real. He didn't have to write that, she thought. He didn't have to care, but he did. And as the train rumbled through the tunnels, Dana closed her eyes and allowed herself to believe, for the first time in a long time, that maybe things would get better. But what Dana didn't know was that this quiet moment would soon echo much louder than she ever imagined. The note wouldn't stay a secret for long. The next morning, the sun barely peeked through Dana's apartment window when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She groaned, rolling over to check the screen. Dozens of notifications flooded her lock screen. "Why is everyone texting me?" she mumbled, squinting at the messages. "Girl, is this you? You're famous. Is this real?" Her thumb hovered over one message that included a link. It was a screenshot of the Daily Post headline. Barron Trump leaves Waitress, a touching note and a huge tip. Internet reacts. Dana sat bolt upright, her heart hammering in her chest as she clicked the link. The article told the story, word for word, a struggling waitress, an unexpected guest, a note full of empathy, and a tip that seemed to have changed her life. The photo attached was of the note itself, her note, written in Barron's neat handwriting. Dana's hands shook as she scrolled. How did this happen? She wondered aloud. She opened another message from one of her co-workers. "The guy at table 5 yesterday. Someone must have seen the note and snapped a picture. It's everywhere now." Her heart dropped. "Everywhere?" she echoed. She flipped through her social media accounts, and sure enough, it was all there. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the note had gone viral. Hundreds of comments poured in. "This is what the world needs more of. Barron Trump seems like such a kind soul. I don't care what anyone says. This is beautiful. Wait, what about the waitress? I hope she's okay." The more Dana read, the more overwhelmed she felt. Strangers debated her story, her life, without knowing a single thing about her. She dropped the phone onto her bed and buried her face in her hands. "What do I do now?" she whispered to herself. The sound of her mum's cough echoed from the next room, pulling Dana back to reality. She couldn't afford to lose her head over this, not with bills to pay and groceries to buy. But even as she picked up her bag and hurried off to work, the pit in her stomach remained. She wasn't ready for her story to belong to the world. The cafe was different that day. When Dana walked through the door, she immediately felt eyes on her. Her co-workers smiled at her in a way they never had before, proud almost. A couple of regulars glanced up from their coffee cups, as if trying to confirm that she was the waitress from the article. Her manager greeted her with a wide grin. "You're a local hero now," she teased. "I don't feel like one," Dana muttered. "You should," her manager said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "What happened yesterday was special, Dana. Not everyone gets to be part of something like that." The words should have comforted her, but instead Dana just felt exposed. She wasn't special, she was just a waitress doing her job, and Barron Trump, he hadn't done it for the attention. As she tied her apron and stepped onto the floor, Dana felt the weight of the world's eyes, even if they weren't physically there. She spent the morning dodging questions from customers and co-workers alike, forcing a smile when people mentioned that nice young man or what he wrote to her. It wasn't until lunch that things reached a boiling point. A news crew parked outside the cafe, cameras, microphones, the works. "Seriously?" Dana groaned as she watched the reporters linger near the entrance, chatting with her manager. Her stomach turned when one of the reporters caught her eye and gave her a polite wave. "You're the talk of the town," her co-worker teased. "Lucky me," Dana muttered under her breath. She ducked behind the counter and pulled out her phone, scanning the latest headlines. The comments flooded in faster than she could process them. That note probably saved her life. This is a lesson in kindness. Small gestures mean everything. More stories like this, please. Somewhere beneath the swirling chaos, Dana felt the faintest flicker of hope. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about kindness, about people remembering that small acts could still make a big difference. But Dana still had one more decision to make, and it would determine how her story ended. By the time Dana's shift ended, the cafe felt smaller than ever, suffocating under the weight of the attention. She ducked out the back door, avoiding the news crew still camped outside. The moment her sneakers hit the pavement, she exhaled as if shaking off the invisible eyes. The walk home was quiet, too quiet. The streets felt unfamiliar now, as if the world had tilted just slightly out of place. Dana clutched her bag tightly, the note still safely tucked inside. Her phone buzzed. Another message. "Dana, they want you on a TV morning show. Call me." It was her manager. Dana stopped walking, her feet planted on the sidewalk. The idea made her skin crawl. Go on television, tell her story. No, that wasn't her. She didn't want her face plastered on screens. But wouldn't it be nice to explain? A small voice whispered. To tell the world that it wasn't about money or fame, that kindness still matters? Dana stared at her phone for a long moment before shoving it back into her bag. Her answer would have to wait. At home, Dana found her mother sitting in her recliner, flipping through the television channels. A familiar voice suddenly echoed from the TV. A simple note left by Barron for a hard-working waitress is melting hearts across the country. Dana froze in the doorway. On the screen was a blurred photo of the receipt, her note, along with the headline, "A quiet act of generosity sparks national conversation." Her mum looked up, coughing softly. "That's you, isn't it?" Dana sighed and dropped her bag. "Yeah, Mum, that's me." Her mum's gaze softened as she gestured for Dana to sit beside her. "It's a good thing, you know. People need stories like this." "I didn't ask for it," Dana muttered, folding her arms. "Sometimes the good things find you when you're not looking for them," her mum replied gently. She reached out and squeezed Dana's hand. What he wrote, that was special. And people are talking about it because they need to believe there's still kindness in the world. You're part of that now. Dana swallowed hard. It feels too big for me, Mum. Like I don't deserve it." Her mum shook her head slowly. "Don't say that. You work hard every day to keep us afloat. You're kind to people even when you're tired. That's who you are, Dana. And someone saw it. Someone decided to remind you that you matter." Dana's eyes filled with tears again, but this time she didn't fight them. Her mum was right. The note wasn't just about her, it was about hope. It was about showing people that small gestures still had power, that kindness still carried weight. That night, as Dana lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her phone buzzed once more. She didn't need to check it to know what it was. More people, more questions, more noise. But beneath it all, the note sat tucked under her pillow, a tangible reminder that someone out there, someone unexpected, had seen her. For once, Dana didn't feel invisible. The next day, Dana made a choice. She called her manager. "Tell the morning show I'll do it," she said quietly. Her manager nearly dropped the phone. "Are you sure?" "Yes, but I'm not going to talk about the money. I want to talk about the note, about kindness, that's all." The interview was simple. Dana sat on the couch, hands folded nervously in her lap as the host leaned forward. "Dana, you've been in the spotlight these past few days because of something very unexpected. A note and a tip from Barron. Can you tell us how it felt when you first read it?" Dana paused, choosing her words carefully. "Honestly, it caught me off guard. It wasn't about the money. It was what he wrote. I've been going through a tough time, and those words meant more than I can explain." The host nodded. The note said, "Your kindness and hard work don't go unnoticed. My family has been where you are. Stay strong, brighter days are coming." What do you think he meant by that? Dana glanced at the camera, suddenly feeling like she was speaking to every person watching, not just the host. "I think he meant that we all go through struggles, no matter who we are, no matter what family we come from. And sometimes, when you're at your lowest, the smallest act of kindness can change everything. It reminds you that someone sees you and that you're not alone. The studio fell silent for a beat, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The host smiled warmly. That's a beautiful message, Dana. Is there anything you'd like to say to Barron if he's watching? Dana's voice wavered slightly, but she smiled. Just thank you. Not for the money, but for seeing me, for reminding me to hold on to hope. You made more of a difference than you know. When the interview aired, Dana didn't look at her phone. She didn't check the comments or the headlines. Instead, she went back to work the next day, apron tied snugly, a little lighter on her feet. The cafe was busier than ever. Customers smiled at her differently now, not because they knew her story, but because she felt seen. People left kind notes on napkins, tipped just a little extra, or simply said thank you with sincerity. Dana kept Barron's note tucked inside her wallet, where it would stay for years to come, a reminder that small gestures matter, that you never know how much hope a few words can bring. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life. Maybe it's a kind word, a helping hand, or just letting someone know they matter. Who can you lift up today? Remember, brighter days are coming for all of us. Sometimes we just need a reminder.